Good morning, everyone, again. This is now the Conservation 102 lecture on an introduction to water resources management in South Africa. Okay, so what I wanted to do here is, I know it's not super clear, but I think it'll be okay. I wanted to put up this schematic poster that was produced by the Department of Water and Sanitation to help look at how water resources can be managed in South Africa. As a part of your introduction, I just want to tell you that, in South Africa, the government forms various ministries. The ministries are formed from different acts, different legislation. And water resources are managed from two very important pieces of legislation. The National Water Act of 1998, and that's what we focus on, the National Water Act, and I'll explain why in a moment. And then we also have the National Environmental Management Act. So the National Environmental Management Act takes a bit of a bottom-up approach. What does bottom-up mean? Bottom-up means what it sounds like. You're looking at the resource, and you're trying to protect the resource, and you're looking at it from upwards. What happens on top of the resource? We have features. What happens on top of those features? We use those features. And then you must manage those features. Do you understand? So the bottom-up approach considers the resource itself, the protection of species, the protection of habitats. Okay, that's the National Environmental Management Act approach. The National Water Act takes a top-down approach. Top-down. What does top-down approach look like, do you think? Okay? The National Water Act tries to manage use. So it looks from the top and says that we're going to manage the way the resources are used. If we're not using it excessively and you leave it alone, it will look after itself. So, the National Water Act regulates and manages uses. The National Environmental Management Act manages and contributes to the protection of the features, the things on the bottom. Okay. Do you know that different ministries have got different powers and different responsibilities? And because the Water Act and the management of use and the provision of services from a water perspective to people is so valuable, okay? Every South African has a right to water to drink and water to use for the basic human needs. Which act is more important, do you think? Which act has got more power? The National Water Act or the Environmental Management Act? The one from the bottom looking at protecting species and protecting resources, or the one looking top down saying people must have water to drink? You see, the Water Act. So what's happened as a result of that is that a lot of emphasis has gone into water resources and water resource management from a regulation of use perspective. Okay? Lots of energy and lots of work has gone into the National Water Act and the management of resources. And as a result, they're trying to protect resources to ensure they're sustainable by regulating use. Huh? What's the role then of the Environmental Management Act? So, the National Water Act is this act, this legislation that's there to try and help us manage and regulate use by saying if use is controlled, if the resource is protected by making sure there's not too much use, okay, then we're going to protect the resources, it's going to be sustainable. I don't know if I'm achieving it. I don't know if I'm achieving it, but I know what I need to do. Okay? And if all the regulators and everybody has to apply for water licenses and those type of things, then what's happening to the Environmental Management Act? The Environmental Management Act is saying your impact must not be excessive on my species. Your impact must not be excessive on my habitat. Have you guys ever heard of an EIA, Environmental Impact Assessment? So the Environmental Impact Assessment sits around the Environmental Management Act realm. Okay? We've got to make sure that it's not going to be any impact to my species and my habitat. But to make sure that services are provided and resources are managed and resources are protected by minimizing use, it's the Water Act. Okay? So the Water Act is really what we focus on when we consider how do we achieve this problem of trying to manage water resources sustainably. Okay? As water resource scientists, many of you have the opportunity to go and become consultants and do EIAs. Do you know that? You have the opportunity to go and do environmental impact assessments. And you are going to work then from the Environmental Management Act and say, what is your development? It's going to be a new mine. How does the mine affect the environment? And they'll tell you. What about development phase? What about production phase? What about operation phase? What about the cleanup? Are there any vulnerable species? You understand that? You can do that impact assessment. Eh? But that impact assessment is there to try and give authorization to the use, the development. Okay, then you give them authorization. On the other hand, you have the Water Act. And the Water Act is going to allow us to say, in this resource, there are some mines, there are some urban communities, there is some agriculture, there is all sorts of different user sectors. Okay? And we need to understand the effect of the multiple stresses together, and we're going to issue water licenses to allow you to access and utilize the water resource. Okay, and we have to make sure all of these things interact with one another. Where Environmental Management Act gives one EIA for one activity, go for it. National Water Act, how much is available? How am I going to share resources? The mine wants some. Agriculture wants some. Urban area wants some. You understand? And I've got to try and balance. You see? So, from a terrestrial environmental perspective, okay, where you can put a fence around a nature reserve, environmental affairs, that's their protected areas. They must manage those protected areas. Environmental affairs and the Environmental Management Act must also try and make sure that people are doing EIAs. Okay? But I do one EIA for one activity. You see, that's their space. You understand? That's one aspect of resource management and resource protection that overlaps a lot with the other terrestrial guys here. But, however, there is the National Water Act. And the Water Act talks about different types of stresses, different types of resources, different types of impacts, different types of drivers. And all of these things together, we have to try and balance and make sure that those things are going to be implemented in the resource in a way that is not going to affect the sustainability of my resource. I want the resource to be there tomorrow. Your SDG story. You understand? So I want to show you that there's a difference between the National Water Act and the Environmental Management Act. This introduction is there to show you that there are two important legislations that you must consider. Why do we consider the Environmental Management Act? To do EIAs. Okay, that's it. I'm leaving it there now. Wrapping it up, putting it in a box, leaving it. No more talk about the Environmental Management Act. Okay. Now we're talking about managing resources. So all that we do in terms of managing resources fits within the auspices under the umbrella of the National Water Act. Good. I'm seeing a few nodding heads. National Water Act. Okay. What we need to do in your module is I'm going to introduce the National Water Act and how we manage water resources in South Africa. Okay. And how we get to the point where we know that some activities or developments cause problems to the resource that you're interested in. After this introduction this week, we're going to move on to rivers. Or we're going to move on to ecosystem-specific components. Okay? We're going to move away from the management. We've only got 1 week of the management. All right, so the National Water Act has produced this beautiful poster for us. Can you please just go turn the lights off again, please? Just at the back row. Please, can you just go turn the lights off? Try and sit still. Let's see if we can get it right. Guys, I'm so tempted to just take these lights out. Okay. Yeah, look. Try again. Oh, wait, you only got to turn one off. One? Yeah, stop. Okay, here we go. So, here we have a catchment management strategy. Let me start up top there. I'm going to try and use my my little laser pointer. Let me just check that it's recording. There we go. Yes. All right, here we have the National Water Act. Okay, that's the Water Act. It requires that resources are protected, used, developed, conserved, managed, and controlled. Okay, that makes sense. What do we do with resources? Protect them, we use them, develop them, conserve them, manage them, control them. When would we need to control a resource? When it's going to kill us with floods. Do you understand? Which is different to when do we need to manage resources? When there's too many people trying to use it and we need to get a balance right. When do we conserve resources? When it's vulnerable or it's been heavily polluted. When do we develop a resource? We develop it so that we can get benefits from it. We develop it because we want storage. We want to build dams. When do we use it? We use it because there's lots of economic opportunities from resources. Guys, South Africa has got one of the highest unemployment rates in the world. In the world. You know this. This is nothing new. Yet we have wonderful resources that are not being used in sustainable ways. Have any of you ever thought that there's an opportunity for you to think, this water resource out there, hey? There are many ways of using this resource and contributing to the management of the resource. How could I utilize this resource? How could I use this resource? Not abuse it, but use it. It's there for someone to say, you know what I want to do? I want to use the resources. How do I do that? And begin your journey. Do you understand? It's very abstract for you before you came to university. Now that you're in university, I want it to change. Some of you, when you're done with this, with your diploma, and you decide to come back to do your advanced diploma because you need some more specific information if you choose to, I hope that some of you will say, I'm going to go into water resources. I'm going to go into the use of resources and help with the management of resources or the protection of resources, and they're going to be water resources. Okay. You know that I do most of my work outside of South Africa. I do a lot of work in the Nile. I do a lot of work in West Africa. I do a lot of work in the Congo, in the Zambezi. They are desperate. Desperate. And I'd say, no, please, just give me 6 months off so I can go and teach, please. Because we need to share this information. Cool. In terms of what we do with resources, we want to make sure that they are used in a sustainable, equitable, and efficient way. Okay? Efficiency. Efficiency is effectiveness and efficiency is actually visions of this university. We want to make sure that we can get the job done as quick as possible and as effectively as possible. Okay? And that's aspects of efficiency. Then we have issues with equity. Why is equity so important in South Africa? Equity. What does equity mean? Equity means that everybody gets an equal share of the resource, equal share or opportunities to use the resource. Why is equity so important in South Africa? Because we have a legacy of inequality. Okay? We know what it's like not to be unequal. In fact, guys, even me, I come from Zimbabwe, by the way. I grew up in Zimbabwe, although I was a South African, and I moved to South Africa in the 90s. I actually was sent to school here. I don't know apartheid. I only got here when it was finished. Hey? You guys are all too young to have experienced it directly yourselves. But all of our parents tell us about it, all of us. You understand? Equality and making sure that people have equal rights to resources must never be affected again. And we are a part of that. We are part of that journey. You see? So we've got to make sure that it's allocated in an equitable way. That means that if this side of the classroom wants to go into resource use, and they're using the resource completely, and this side of the classroom decides to come and use the same resource, then we say, no, you may not use that resource. No. We have to say, guys, the resource that we're using excessively, we've got some new users. What are we going to do? How are we going to make sure that the use is balanced? We have to give them some. You guys need to share. Do you understand? That's what we do. That's what we do. Okay, so we have the Department of Water and Forestry, and now it's the Department of Rural Settlement. Water and Forestry. Water Sanitation and Forestry. Sorry, it's got its new name, eh? But it used to be DW, the Department of Water and Sanitation. And then you also have this little component here within the same department called National Water Resource Strategy. Okay, this department is supposed to establish the strategy. And the strategy is what we're going to talk about in another lecture, the strategy. How are you going to do it? So now we know who it is and what you need to do. How? How? Tell me how. And we have the strategy. We have one of the best strategies in the world. Other countries, many countries are copy-pasting our strategy and using our strategy. It's fine. Okay? Then what we do is when we try to implement, this is the department that has to do the implementing. Okay, in orange. The Department of Water and Sanitation. Okay, it's slight change. They then can appoint catchment management agencies. And in this area, we've got the CON102 Catchment Management Agency, who is the agency who's been appointed by the department to actually carry out the strategy. It's their job to do it. So who do you think is a part of the Catchment Management Agency? The Guptas? Huh? No, it must be members of the public. It must be members of the user groups. It must be representatives of all groups. Then they employ specific people within that agency to contribute to manage that resource. By the way, the IUCMA, do you know the CON102 Catchment Management Agency? They asked me to be a board member. Can you believe it? A lecturer to be a board member. And I said, no. Because, listen. Guys, we spoke about this. Guys, I want to work with them. I want to help them manage resources. I want to take you guys into the field and do their job. How can I go do their job if I'm a board member? It will be too biased. It's called nepotism. It's too inside trading. Do you know that? We were considering as a university, can I be a board member? Everyone in the university, eventually we decided it's a bad idea. I want the IUCMA to give us money to take you to the field. I want to have the IUCMA give you bursaries. I want them to buy us a boat. You understand? How can I get them to buy us boats if I'm a board member? You understand? Do you think I made the right choice? Yes. Good. Okay. Then, guys, then the IUCMA comes up with a strategy. They actually implement the strategy. And we are you know how many catchments there are in South Africa? Broad catchments. 2 years ago, there were 19. Now there are only 9. So there are 9 areas in South Africa that are being managed on different catchment bases. Okay? We have the IUCMA, the CON102 Catchment Management Agency. How many other catchment management agencies have been established for the other 9 catchments or the other 8 catchments in South Africa? How many do you think? Put up your hands. Anyone got a guess? 0. 0. This is the only water management area in the country that has a catchment management agency. Did you know that? 0. They are working on others, but they have nothing in place. So 2 years ago, the Department of Water and Sanitation said, you know what? The IUCMA is doing such a good job. Maybe they can take over all 9. Hey? No, that's the job of the department. The department has the job of managing all the 9 water management areas in the country. One of them is being implemented by IUCMA. You cannot take the one catchment that's being implemented and say, it is your job to implement the whole country. No. So there were big problems. And our minister, Mokenyane, is no longer the minister. Do you understand that? This is serious stuff, guys. Because while that was happening, Rand Water, who provides water to Joburg, was saying, I don't have a license to provide water anymore. The mining activities were not getting licenses. IUCMA was not billing. Nobody was paying for water. It was becoming a mess. Then what happens? We just start to stop. We start to stop managing services. And instead of being able to go to the government and say, come on, you have to manage the resources. The National Water Act and the Constitution says you must give us a safe environment and you must allow us access in an equitable way to resources. And they weren't doing it. You see, this is the space that I want to introduce you to. You guys are going to enter that world and you guys are going to be able to say, hang on, doesn't the National Water Act say that this must be protected? And that my constitutional right says that I must not be getting diseases from the water resource? And it says that I must have access to the resource, and it says that I'm allowed to look at to develop my job and find a job out of this resource? Yes. Who must I phone? And here you can go to the IUCMA. Anyone can go to the IUCMA. But for the rest of the country at the moment, there's no other catchment management agencies. You've got to go to Pretoria. Serious, hey? Guys, you know, I'm young in this industry, and I've already managed the projects that have worked on the new Lesotho Dam, the dam in Lesotho that they're building to expand water to South Africa. We've already worked on management plans for the whole of the Vaal and the whole of the Olifants. There is so many opportunities in this sector for you guys because there's no one to do the work. I'm flippin' tired. I'm telling you, I still have companies like Sasol phone me today and say, I don't understand this. Why did you come up with this objective? I'm very tired. Okay, I need you guys to help. There are wonderful opportunities. All right, let's talk about what happens now. So this catchment management strategy needs to be implemented. And this is the management strategy. This is it. This is the pillars of catchment management and what the IUCMA has to do. This is it. What do we need to do? We need to look at the reserve, ecological reserve and basic human needs. We look at an allocation system. We need to allocate amount of water. We need to look at strategic use of water. We need inter-catchment transfers, and we have international obligations. This is the pillars of the strategy. Okay, why? Because we want to achieve this, which is ultimately from the Act. Who's going to do it? How do they implement it? IUCMA, they've got to do this. Okay, reserve, allocate certain amounts to different users, strategic use, inter-catchment transfers, and international obligations. Okay, that's how we're going to do it. So if you look at this picture, guys, I'm going to just move away a little bit and talk about the picture. What have we got? Why is water important to us? We've got recreation. We want water for recreation. We want to access groundwater so that we can pump groundwaters to supply our activities, our industries. We're also polluting groundwater, so we need to pump it. Over here, the purple ones. We want to, and people are changing the flows of the water course. We are developing water resources. We don't want them to go through our cities anymore. Do you know Alexandra in Joburg, hey? It's built on the Yixkay River. Alex, it's built on the Yixkay River. Every now and then, because of the size of Joburg and because of all the paving, when you have a heavy rainfall event, the water cannot go into the ground. Where does it go? It cannot go in the ground. There's too much paving. It goes into the channels and the rivers. The river by Alex looks like a steep banks, and that river fills up and comes over the banks like this. The people go to bed when there's heavy rainfall events. They wake up in the middle of the night being washed away. Huh? We have to manage water resources, and we sometimes have to change their course. What happens if we want to build a mine here, and the river runs through the property, and we're going to dig a hole, and the river's going to fall into the hole? Crazy. People are moving rivers all the time. It's amazing. We want to discharge waste. If we produce waste from cities, the city cannot survive if we cannot get rid of the waste. So we discharge the waste into the environment. Okay, let me ask you this question. Which is the worst in terms of impact? Mining with pollution, agriculture with pollution and they're extracting too much water, dams with barriers, alien invasive species, or people? People because we have wastewater treatment works. People who produce waste that goes to wastewater treatment works, which cannot be treated because there's too many. Which is the worst? Mines? Put up your hands. Mines, anyone? No. Agriculture? No. Alien species? Really? People? People. All right, we want to control water use. Then look at this. Interbasin transfers. You know that what we do as well is we take a lot of our water because there's a lot available here, and from these dams we transfer them through the mountain into other resources. This is what we're doing in Lesotho. Lesotho has lots of rainfall, and we don't need the water in Lesotho, we want the water in Johannesburg. So we put a pipe through the mountain, and we put it out on the other side into the rivers, and it goes to Johannesburg. Crazy, eh? What else can I show you? We've got managers, we've got user associations, water service development plans. Okay. Water management area up top here where the water comes from. Do you know that around the escarpment between us and Joburg, and if you go down the Drakensberg, about 70% of all the water in the country comes from the mountainous area. Okay, that area is very important to protect as a water management area. Catchment management agencies, already ISMA, international water management institutions, and different water management areas. Okay, so what is a catchment? A catchment is this area within the mountains where all the water in the mountains comes together. Okay, so if I've got an activity here, it's going to influence these people because the water flows in that direction. See, and then we try and establish these management plans looking at different catchments. Okay, what's important for you, and I'm recording this, what's important for you, and I'm going to go back to the guidelines for the National Water Act to unpack this a little bit, is that all of this falls within the auspices, umbrella of the National Water Act. In fact, here we've got a cute little sign here saying Lesotho. So they're suggesting this is all in Lesotho, and then they push the mountain through, the water through the mountain, and this then will go to Johannesburg, I suppose. Pretty cool. Okay, this is what we want to achieve. We want to protect, use, develop, conserve, manage, control. We want to ensure sustainability, equity, and efficiency. The Department of Water and Sanitation is the custodian of water resources. It's their responsibility. They can then implement the Catchment Management Agency, IUCMA. If we come up with a law that says water resources must be protected, it becomes the job of the Catchment Management Agency to do it. If there's no agency, who's responsible? The department. You understand? If the catchment then implements it by giving you a license, then they are implementing the act or the law, and they are holding you accountable. If you don't do your job, you must pay the polluter pays principle, hey? You can be held accountable. But if you don't have a license, who's accountable? It's the Catchment Management Agency. And if there is no Catchment Management Agency who's accountable, it's the department. Okay, the Water Act provides for those things. All right, let me just show you quickly. Yeah. Okay, what I've done is I've given you guys this guideline document. It's on Moodle. Okay. Oh, come on, really? Still recording. Yep. All right, let's just take a little bit step back and say, look at your rights in the Constitution. Act 108 of 1996 is the Constitution of South Africa. What does it provide you in terms of water resources? Everybody has the right to sufficient food and water. Everybody has the right to an environment that is not harmful to their health or well-being. The environment must be protected for the benefit of all people living now and in the future. Okay? National government is the custodian of all the sources of water, such as rivers, groundwater, and dams, and local government is in charge of municipal water services. Okay, that's in the Constitution. And the Constitution then gives the foundations or the place where the act can be carried out. Okay. I think this is important here as well, guys. I just want to highlight this part for you. South Africa is a dry country with a very low average rainfall. Our rivers are small in comparison with other countries. All of the rivers in South Africa, together, are smaller than the Zambezi. The Zambezi River alone is larger than all of the rivers in South Africa. That's how small our rivers are. We don't have much. You guys need to go see the Nile River and to see that you can have a river that is 3 or 4 kilometers wide. It is hundreds of meters deep, and it is pumping past you. It is flowing fast. It's amazing. Okay. A number of our large rivers are shared with other countries, so we need to share the water. In fact, the Crocodile River, we need to share the water with Mozambique. Many of our existing water resources have been overused or significantly altered. Every day, people and organizations have an impact on the quality of our rivers and streams, our groundwater and our rivers, our wetlands. Okay. The National Water Act is important because it provides a framework to protect water resources against overexploitation and to ensure. Remember, this is a top-down approach. We're going to regulate use of water and ensure that there is water for social and economic development and water for the future. Sustainability, sustainability, sustainability. It is also important because it recognizes that water belongs to the whole nation for the benefits of all people. Okay. We're going to talk about this. What do we talk about when we look at different types of water resources in South Africa? Okay. We refer to groundwater, wetlands, streams, rivers, estuaries, and the open ocean. Remember, inland ecosystems are those. Wetlands. Wetlands. We don't consider the ocean. Although the ocean is a resource and there are connections, we're interested in estuaries, rivers, wetlands, groundwater. And remember, they can all be called wetlands, but you can refer to specific types of flays or marshlands as a wetland as well. Okay, you guys have been introduced to classification. Now what we're going to talk about is, what is a wetland? And explain it. What is a groundwater? What are the characteristics? What are lakes? What are the characteristics? I see they don't have an icon for lakes here. Okay. Where's my thing? There we go. Don't worry about that for the moment. Okay. So I want to show you within the Water Act, everything we do, because we're interested in the sustainable use and protection of resources, comes from Chapter 3 of the Water Act. See, remember we spoke about the strategies, protection, the use, the financial provisions, all of those things are about management. We're interested in this protection of resources, just that. That explains how water will be protected, used, developed, conserved, managed, and controlled. Remember those lists on the picture I showed you? It's the same list. Okay, and that all fits into the protection of water resources. Okay, same list again. Guys, I'm emphasizing how important this list is. Hint, hint, hint. Protection of resources, the use of the resources, the control of the resources. What is it and how do you do it? How do you manage it? What is it? Conservation and development, all in the context of a sustainable and equitable manner for the benefit of all. Okay, remember this brings in the concepts of efficiency, sustainability, equity. Okay, you see, those are the principles of the National Water Act. Sustainability, equity, and efficiency. We're going to spend a bit more time on that. I just want to get to one more thing here. Okay, we're going to spend more time here, so don't worry about me going past it. Okay, those are the 19 areas. Okay, so water resource protection has got three, they're drawn it like a puzzle. Can you see here? If you want to put the puzzle together, the problem, if you want to solve the problem of water resource, sustainable water resource management, you've got to put all these pieces together. If you want to protect this water resource, you cannot do it without the classification system, the classifying each resource so you know how to do it. You need to actually do it. Then we need to determine objectives to make sure that the balance is going to be achieved. And we need to set the reserve. Okay. So these are the four important components of how to achieve this protection through the Water Act. The Water Act tells us how to do it. Chapter 3 of the Water Act. And I just want to explain here, what is the reserve? A reserve that you guys have been exposed to is like a game reserve. It's a place where you keep it reserved for something. You keep that area enclosed and for something special. You're reserving something, you're protecting something. In water resources, the reserve with a capital R is the amount of flow required and the quality of water required to keep the ecosystem in a healthy and functioning, and the amount of water that you need to provide your basic human needs for each person. Okay, so we here need to determine for each resource who are the people that have a right to this resource, who are dependent on this resource, how much water from that resource must be provided to them for their basic human needs, first. Secondly, how much water must be in the system to make sure that the system is in a sustainable condition. Okay, and if we set up the reserve and we meet and achieve the reserve, we should be able to protect resources. Okay, that's all for today. Can you turn the lights on for me again, please? Questions? Wait, before you run away, I want to make sure that you guys have got, you guys need to start to get your head around this. Look, it's a lot. It's a lot. And you need to go over these videos and start to think about it. And I'm going to test you. In your semester test, guys, I'm going to hammer you with water resources. Okay, because I need you to understand it. Please turn the light on. Are you winning? Okay, welcome back. Oh, some of you were sleeping.